Some people are very comfortable with volatility, and they understand that the markets go through cycles, and they're very comfortable with that. Other people look at their account fluctuate, and they get very, very nervous, and they have concerns. And after having done this for so many years, I kind of put those two different ways of thinking almost into two different categories. One way of thinking is more like an investor, and the other way of thinking is more like a saver. So you almost have to determine what kind of personality are you. Are you more of a saver? And I could give the example, like when I was a young kid, I opened up a savings account, a passbook savings account. I remember taking my passbook savings account to the bank, and I'd make a deposit. I'd give them the physical book. It looked like a passport, and they would stamp the book, and I'd look at the value in my savings account. And every time I made a deposit and they added some interest, it would go up in value pretty regularly by whatever the interest was at that time. That's basically a saver mentality. It's having a fixed amount of money that earns a little bit of interest along the way and doesn't fluctuate. So normally people that have a saver mentality will use savings, money markets, CDs, things that provide more of a fixed rate of return where there's not a whole lot of fluctuation. On the other hand, if you're an investor and you don't mind the fluctuations that are involved by trying to gain more return, that's an investor mentality. Like for example, we all have that story where we had a family member, or even ourselves, bought a house, and 15 years later, 20 years later, 25 years later, they sold the house for 2 or 3 times what they paid for it. And we say, wow, look at how fantastic that was. Well, they weren't checking the value of their house every month. They weren't looking at, they weren't getting that passbook savings account to see, that book to see what the value of their account was doing, the value of their house. So they took a longer term perspective, and there were probably periods during that time when the house went up and down in value, but they took that longer term investor approach. So it's really two different approaches. And what often happens is you take someone who's more of a saver mentality and they start investing, and they have a bad experience because they don't think of it as a long-term investment approach. And that's where it takes a shift in thinking for someone to be more comfortable with the fact that, if you're going to look at your account every day or every week, and now, with the internet, we have the ability to log in, or even our cell phones, log in and look at our account every hour if we want to. Watching that account go up and down in value for some people is just too much to handle. So it does take a shift in thinking, a much longer term perspective, and a comfort level with knowing that the fact that the account's going to fluctuate over time, but have the greater potential for return over the long run.